Welcome to Star Wars Characters Explained. Director Krennic played a pivotal role in the fantastic Rogue One, but his past was shrouded in mystery within the film. In today's video, we're going to be learning about Krennic's life story from his birth all the way until he finds Galen Erso at the beginning of Rogue One. The boy, known fully as Orson Callan Krennic, was born in 51 BBY in Sativran City, which was located on the planet called Lexerol. When he was 15, he earned a place on the Republic's future program on Brental. It was here that he met and befriended Galen Erso. During his time in the program, the tutors noticed that Krennic had a natural skill in reading and manipulating people, but it was his talented architectural mind that the program was trying to nurture. When he graduated, he joined the Republic Corps of Engineers. He quickly rose through the ranks and became a supervisor on several major construction projects. His position within the Corps had also given him the influence to help his friend Galen obtain a professorship on Coruscant at the Institute of Applied Science. Krennic's influence rose even further, and he became a member of the Republic Strategic Advisory Cell. Public knowledge was that while a part of this cell he was represented by the Corps of Engineers, but he was actually secretly working for the Republic Special Weapons Group. Within this group, Krennic was studying the weapons being built for the army, taking most notice of weapons being built upon Rathana and Kuat. After the early schematics of the Death Star were obtained by the Republic during the First Battle of Geonosis, a meeting was brought together to discuss whether the Republic was capable of creating such a weapon before the Separatists. A basic ring-like structure had already been constructed, but challenges became major problems when it came to the labour required to build it, as well as the technology required to power the weapon inside. Krennic brought the Death Star concept up in a meeting with Mas Amedda, the Vice Chair of the Senate. He suggested that the work of his friend Galen Erso could be the key to some of the major challenges it faced, but that Galen was imprisoned by the Separatists on Volt. Amedda agreed to let Krennic free Erso, however, Krennic had to do this without allowing anybody to discover the Republic's involvement. Krennic hired the help of the smuggler Haz Obit and travelled to the planet Merge. There, with the support of another team of smugglers, they managed to capture 2 separatist scientists. They then travelled to Volt, disguised as Zerpan Industry employees, the company that Galen worked for. They used the 2 captured scientists in a deal that would see Galen, his wife Lyra, and their newly born daughter Jin return to Zerpan. The deal went down smoothly, but when they tried to leave Volt, they were intercepted by a separatist warship. Krennic was forced to call in the support of Commander Prakas, who arrived in his Republic cruiser. After they had been picked up, Krennic demanded that Prakas fire upon the droid forces that were stationed in the prison and around the city that Erso was held. Krennic then took Galen back to his home planet of Grange, which had been besieged by the separatists and was left ravaged. He tried to convince him to leave his pacifist ways, using Grange as an example of what would happen if action isn't taken, but Galen was resolute on his position to stay neutral within the war. Krennic now knew that Galen would have to make his own decision to join him, as he could not be convinced. Krennic arranged to meet the Archduke of Geonosis, Poggle the Lesser, who was a prisoner of the Republic at this time. Krennic had studied the Geonosian species beforehand, and asked Poggle if he would be willing to convince his people to aid in the construction of the Death Star in exchange for his freedom. Poggle knew that without his leadership, the Geonosians would simply return to their primitive infighting state, and because of this he had to accept Krennic's offer. Galen had approached Krennic and asked if he would be willing to join him on a new project for an energy facility. However, Krennic refused, knowing that the Death Star project was his future. However, Mas Amedda had called Krennic in for a meeting, angered at his attack on Volt using Republic ordnance and the interrogation of Poggle. But Krennic put Amedda's concerns to rest after offering him the successful progress reports of the Death Star. Before he left for Geonosis to finalise the deal with Poggle, Krennic attended a reunion for the future program with Galen. However, the reunion turned sour after Galen was accused of being a separatist spy. Krennic stepped in to defend his childhood friend, earning Galen's trust even further. Krennic then joined Poggle on Geonosis, where for days he had to watch gladiatorial games in the Petranaki arena that were being held in celebration of Mechagin. Poggle then announced to the crowd that the reborn Geonosian hive would be constructing the Death Star, causing a rapturous appraisal. The Geonosians began work on the Death Star, making very speedy progress, and it went from a ring-like structure to a spherical one. Krennic knew that if he was going to get Galen on board, he would need to win more favour with him, so he arranged for the charges of espionage on his head to be dropped. He also offered the now unemployed Galen a new job at a large production facility on Lokori working for Helical Hypercom. But this was a cunning ploy by Krennic, as he knew Galen would hate it, as well as the constant separatist attacks on the planet. This would hopefully make Krennic's Death Star proposal more tempting. Things were moving at a very steady pace until Krennic was woken up in the middle of the night and informed that the Geonosians had rebelled and destroyed their months of work, as well as killing the soldiers who were at the facility. It was revealed that Poggle gave the order for the Geonosians to rebel and had escaped to return to Count Dooku. This dealt a severe blow to Krennic's growing reputation. Despite Poggle's betrayal, the Clone Wars ended shortly after, and the Republic had been reformed into the Galactic Empire. The Republic Special Weapons Group had also been reformed into the new Imperial Advanced Weapons Division. Krennic met with the Ersos after learning that Galen had been offered a permanent administrator job on Lokori. He knew this would be the time to try and convince Galen, who hated his job, to join him, so he offered Galen a position on the Project Celestial Power, which he implied was to give power to war-damaged planets. Galen happily agreed, but it was Krennic's intent to secretly use Galen's research for the weapon within the Death Star. Galen then joined the project on Coruscant and began his research into the kyber crystals Krennic provided. Meanwhile, Krennic met with Tarkin and explained to him the potential power the new weapon could hold. He also explained to him how he was planning to select certain planets with rare mining materials necessary to the Death Star's construction. Although he was initially skeptical, Tarkin became more interested as Krennic explained his plans further. Tarkin gave Krennic authority above his own rank to ensure that Krennic could achieve his goals. Krennic then reached out to former friend Has Obit and had him gather a team of smugglers to perform smuggling operations on the planets in his plans. This would allow the Empire to come in and then take control over the mining corporations based on them. Everything was moving smoothly, but Galen's wife Lyra was suspicious of Krennic's true intentions with Project Celestial Power. Krennic knew of these suspicions, as he had constant surveillance on the Ersos, and he became concerned that Lyra might have a negative impact on Galen's research. A little while later, after an attempt to weaponize a portion of Galen's research, a facility on Malpaz exploded, killing many people. Krennic tried his best to cover it up as an attack, but was called in by now Grand Vizier Masameda. Krennic suggested to the Grand Vizier that his rank be raised to give off the impression that the project was going well. Krennic wanted his rank to be raised to Rear Admiral, however to his disapproval, his rank was raised to only Full Commander. Krennic then noticed in his surveillance that Lyra had discussions with friends of Galen, who were accusing Krennic of the explosion on Malpaz. Krennic knew he had to remove Lyra from the equation and suggested she take a break and spend some time exploring as she used to do during the Clone Wars. Lyra then took Jin on an expedition that Krennic arranged, and he used this time to privately influence Galen. He used the explosion on Malpaz and lied, claiming it to be an attack on Galen's work. Galen was angered, still believing his work to be only a part of Project Celestial Power, and agreed to put even more effort into his research in complete secrecy. Krennic's former friend Has Obit was shocked after learning about the destruction he had indirectly caused on Malpaz, and joined Saw Gerrera in staging a rebellion. Knowing that Tarkin would not back down from a fight, Krennic saw this as an opportunity to demonstrate a prototype weapon for the Death Star without Tarkin being able to claim any involvement. Thanks to Galen's intensified research, a prototype weapon was placed upon a Star Destroyer and it was shot into black holes known as the Hero Twins to ensure it would not cause any damage. The test was a complete success, cementing Krennic's place in Imperial history. Lyra returned from her expedition with Jyn, but noticed that Galen was distant, tired and under extreme pressure. Unfortunately for Krennic, he learned that Obit, who he hired to take Lyra on the expedition, had told Lyra about the Malpaz explosion and the environmental destruction of the worlds that he was instructed to work on. Krennic provided Lyra with an ultimatum, that if she continued to be a disruption, it would severely damage the project's progression, and that there would be trouble if she continued to pry. Krennic travelled to meet the workers of Project Celestial Power on Hypori, and he was asked by a friend of the Ersos known as Riva Domain what they were truly working on. The scale of the project was surprisingly enormous, which led to her suspicions. Krennic was now being accused of using their research for a super weapon, and he had to protect his reputation as well as the Death Star's secrecy. Krennic returned to his Star Destroyer and ordered the facility to be bombarded, killing all of the scientists within. Galen hadn't got any direct orders from Krennic, and he began to realise that he'd been severely neglecting his daughter Jyn, and when Lyra and Galen were together, they both realised they were under surveillance. So Lyra tried to contact her friend Riva, but to no avail, so she contacted a friend she made on her recent expedition called Nari Sable. She asked Nari to relay the information about Malpaz and Hypori to her and Galen, and they both discovered evidence that both disasters were caused by Imperials, not the anarchists that Krennic claimed. Galen and Lyra then arranged a meeting with Krennic, and both demanded the truth. Krennic believed this to be a trap, and left so he could order removal of Lyra and Jyn as he once threatened. On the way, Tarkin informed Krennic that Obit was on Coruscant. Krennic had assumed that had returned to enact revenge, or worse, steal the Ersos from his grasp. Krennic rushed back, only to discover that the Ersos had vanished, without the help of Unknown to him, it was actually Saw Gerrera who had helped them escape. Grand Vizier Maz Ameda demoted Krennic from Commander back down to Lieutenant Commander due to his failure. Krennic was enraged by Galen's betrayal and was determined to find him. He proceeded to search and develop the Death Star, however, following his failures, he was now overseen by his most hated rival, Tarkin. Several years passed, and the Death Star project had hit a major standstill due to the lack of Galen's kyber crystal expertise. But Krennic had managed to track Galen and his family to the remote planet La Mu. He dispatched his shuttle, deployed his personal death troopers, and travelled to La Mu to pay Galen a very surprising visit. From here on, you guys know the story. I assume most of you watched Rogue One, and although I liked Krennic in the movie, the character needed more time to grow, just like most of them, and we can clearly see, thanks to his backstory, why he was so menacing. His ability to manipulate and control others was almost unrivaled, and this is something I felt was really lacking in the film. So tell me, what did you think of Krennic in Rogue One, and does his origin change your opinion of him in any way? A like would be greatly appreciated, and as always, if you want to see more, consider force choking that subscribe button. Also, I highly recommend going to check out Docking Bay 94 on Facebook. It's a fantastic group for all of us Star Wars fans to come together. I will see you guys in the next video, but until then, may the Force be with you, always.